Hi, so in this video, I'm going to be doing a continuation of what's ending up to be a series of videos on the topic of women's pleasure and sensuality, intimacy and sexuality, and also in relation to creating sensually pleasurable experiences with your partner. I didn't realize I was going to be making this into a series, but as I've been going with it, I'm just realizing, oh yes, of course, that makes so much sense because there's just so much to unpack within all of these topics that are all connected. And part of what I'm realizing of the importance of creating a series is because there's actually and what I've been focusing on so far in these videos is a lot of like the meta and contextual influences that all feed into how we relate to our own sexuality, sensuality, pleasure, and intimacy with ourselves, and then how that gets shared with another person, because there's quite a lot of influences that determine how we relate to it in ourselves and how we share it with other people. So I really suggest that you take the time to watch or listen to the other two videos that I've done so far. So the first one was, like I said, it was mostly on just like the meta landscape and the contextual influences, and it's really, really important to understand these aspects of intimacy and sexuality, and especially women's pleasure, because it tends to really affect and determine a woman's pleasure and how she connects to it, how she enjoys it, experiences, and shares it. And so for women and people who love women, it's really important information to know, because part of what I was saying in those videos is that if we were to look at life as a web with all the different threads of the web representing different aspects of life, and if in the center of the web is sexuality, all of these different threads feed into that center of the web, again, especially for women. And it's really important to understand this when we're trying to also create the most fulfilling quality and experiences of these aspects of ourselves and in our relationships to other people. So, and then in the second video, I started to go into a little bit of guidance around how to create sensually pleasurable experiences with a partner. I didn't get too far deep into that because, again, I kind of was really talking about like the contextual aspects and not only context, but things like setting up the space and preparing yourself and setting a special date and kind of like the planning and the prep leading up to creating and enjoying a special experience like this with your partner. So again, that's also a really good video to watch, because it goes from that meta and contextual perspective, and it brings it into like, okay, what are some of the action steps to get things lined up so that the context could be created for pleasure and intimacy, for sensuality and sexual experiences with your partner that are fulfilling, that are really deeply fulfilling. I mean, it's very common that people are wanting more fulfillment and a quality of intimacy with their partner during sex, meaning connection, meaning things are synced up. You know, the people are synced up in presence, in breath, in body, in movement, and these are things that build a sense of intimacy in our sexual relations with other people. So I'm realizing, I was like, okay, so eventually in this, what's becoming a series of these videos, what I'm wanting to do is eventually get more granular into ideas, inspirations on specifically what to do for your partner for a sensual experience. But, and I was going to go there, but then I realized Actually, I want to do a whole other video just on the topic of women's pleasure because it's such an important topic, and it's really helpful to have this information and then, like I said, from the 2 previous videos before going in and just trying to get into creating an experience with someone. It's like it just helps to really understand all of what goes into creating the most optimal, pleasurable experience for a woman, because when the woman's happy, everyone's happy. And a lot about my work is helping to support women to feel more safe and secure, comfortable and confident in their bodies and in their pleasure, in their sexuality, in their sensuality, in their expression and communication and guidance of it all with another person. And because it's not just about sex, it's about all aspects of life, you know. It's like the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. If we are not, first of all, in tune with our needs, if we don't know what our needs and our wants are, then we're not likely to have a vocabulary to articulate those parts of ourselves, and then have a skill set of communication to other people to share it with them in ways that they can receive in ways that feel warm and inviting for them to engage in a process of exploration and experimentation and enjoyment together. And I mean, that's how, you know, if a person's not able to do to express that way, you know, in the bedroom, they're probably also not expressing that way just as they move through life, as they move through the world, you know, and going in and out of stores and banks, running errands, interacting with strangers or personal relations. It's like, I think this piece around women, like supporting women to feel really secure and safe and comfortable and empowered in themselves and in their body, in their voice, in their expression. I just feel it's one of the greatest keys to this world evolving and awakening to its true nature. It's awakening humanity, I think, really has everything to do with women really owning and claiming this part of ourselves, because we're here to be the guides and the teachers, the healers, the lovers, the muses to this world. And how are we going to do that effectively if we aren't connected to these parts of ourselves? So it's so much more than just sexuality and sensuality and pleasure and intimacy. It's so much more than that. And so that so much moreness is the why behind why I do what I do. And at the same time, not everybody coming to the topics of, you know, pleasure, intimacy, sexuality, sensuality is like coming with this like huge, you know, meta mission behind it. They just simply want to have a more fulfilling experience with their partner. And so, but for me, there is a bigger purpose to why that is, you know, because I feel like women, we're the gatekeepers of this world. And we have endured, for our entire written history, we have endured severe repression in many, many forms. And so part of what I'm here to do, part of what I feel is my purpose through just my life and my work and my creativity, is to help light a spark of inspiration and awakening and empowerment inside women. And so whether it be through holistic wellness or transformational work, whether it be through feminine embodiment or, you know, sexuality, intimacy, relationships, for me, it's all to serve this one mission of waking us women up, being a support to the process of awakening and evolution and empowerment for women. Because women, the world needs us. The world needs us desperately. And the time is now. Okay, so I'm going to go into the topic of women's pleasure, and I'll say that, you know, if we stand back and look at like our culture as a whole, and look at like the history, and look at the topic of sexuality, look at the topic of pleasure, arousal, eros, intimacy, you know, these are not topics that culturally we are really supported to learn and understand and explore and experiment and express. And it's really too bad, because it's, in my opinion, it's the most powerful part of ourselves. And it's not only the part of ourselves that we access during sexual interactions, that same energy, sexual energy and creative energy are the same. We just use and explore and express them in different ways in different contexts. But actually, the energy of sexuality, we are exercising that through every single choice that we make every single day. Because it's that creative force of all of those choices that actually create who we are and the life that we're living. So they're very much connected. And again, this is really about like women, like our journey and our own path of empowerment, like really understanding more about what are our needs, what are our wants, and how do we line up our choices to be in alignment with that. And it's not only like it's not only like needs and wants on a self-serving level. It's like, what are those needs and wants that are in alignment with our truth and our authenticity, our integrity, our higher selves, and a greater good and a greater purpose, you know? Because just as we have a web of life with a center and all these threads that span out, each one of us, there is a web of life of humanity, and each one of us is a thread in that web. And through all of our lives, we are all here participating in a significant rewriting of many, many, many cultural stories at this time. So there's like no better time to be really diving into these parts of ourselves and understanding that as we heal and grow ourselves, we're also feeding the collective energy through our life just by simply being who we are and living our best life, and absolutely within all interactions that we have with other people and other beings. Okay, so we don't come from a culture yet that has very appropriate, truly educational, supportive guidance on these topics of sexuality and intimacy and pleasure and sensuality and the erotic aspect of life. And eventually, like I said, in these series, I'm going to be getting to a part when I think it's going to be in the next video, actually, where I'm actually going to be kind of getting more detailed with one way that it could look to create sensually pleasurable experiences with your partner. And I'm going to bring part of it into this video specifically because I want to highlight the fact that, most men and women have never had an experience where they just get to be taken on a journey of their own body and their own body's sensual and pleasure territory to really understand what they like and what they want, and to learn how to speak and express and guide the person that they're with into their terrain. And so actually, in a lot of my work with women, it's a source of anxiety. It's a source of shame and embarrassment to not know what they need and what they want and how to appropriately, effectively, efficiently communicate it. And so I feel like part of why I'm here is just to help make this part of ourselves feel more comfortable to engage with. There's this kind of tendency to already just know it all and be this like masterful lover, and to like be confident and to come off in this way. And I mean, I get it, it's everybody, it feels good to feel confident, but the road to confidence is through just putting yourself in a position to make mistakes, or just simply to learn. It's not even mistakes, and that actually, we build our confidence more when we can authentically come to a moment of experience, especially with another person, and just be honest, like, I actually don't really know what I'm doing here. I'm not very experienced with this. And like, bring your innocence, bring your vulnerability, bring your willingness to not be perfect. Bring maybe even a sense of humor and play, because it's through that we kind of open ourselves to learning. We open ourselves to receive guidance and instruction, and to be more exploratory and see, with the person that we're with. And I just think this is so important for men and women, to explore themselves more in this way, and with each other as well, because it's how you learn. And actually, you have to really do it with every new person that you're with, because just because something worked with the last person, just because you learned their body's pleasure terrain, and it worked really well with the last person, it doesn't mean it's going to work well with the next person. And it kind of is a conversation too, that even if you do learn it well, and you learn like some things that really work for you as a couple sexually, over time, I think it's just a natural topic of life that needs to be kind of like continuously engaged with and checked in upon, because we're always changing and growing, always learning new things. We're always learning new parts of ourselves, opening up in different ways, perhaps something we were completely against even trying at an earlier point of life, maybe later we feel a little bit more open to it and exploratory, So I think when it comes to sexuality, it's really important not to put ourselves in a box, because it's like us, it's just morphing and changing all the time. And so one of the benefits from creating the types of experiences that I'm going to be talking about more, I touched in on it. I kind of did like an outline in my previous video. Again, I highly recommend that you take the time to listen or watch those videos, because it gives a lot of information about all the ways to really be tuned into the energetics and the logistics of how to create really beautiful, meaningful, nourishing, sensually pleasurable experiences with your partner. In creating these types of experiences together, you actually get a chance to learn and grow together. And in doing so, and going back to the part of like, bring your authenticity, your vulnerability, bring your innocence and your playfulness, bring a sense of humor and play. It's like, there's such beauty in bringing yourself to your partner as a student of their body and their pleasure map. Excuse me, I need a drink of tea really quick. Because that's how we learn. We just learn through asking questions and getting hands-on demos and getting tutorials. And I mean, I've worked with so many people who are really not quite confident in this part of themselves, and I think part of the lack of confidence just simply comes from not engaging in experiences with somebody that is exploratory and experimental, and is offers guidance in these ways. And so it's interesting too. I've been in one of Esther Perel's relationship trainings for almost 2 years now. And she has all these modules on just so many, just a magnificent range of topics having everything to do with sensuality and pleasure and intimacy and desire and sexuality. And this woman came on and she was talking about the whole module was on pain during sex. And she was talking about how there's a correlation for women who orgasm and women who don't, that the women who are able to orgasm more easily are also very comfortable talking about sex in general and talking about what they like and what they need and talking about their bodies, and that there's a direct correlation with women that feel more confident and comfortable in this part of themselves and expressing, speaking, and the ability to have orgasms. And I think that makes so much sense because there is an energetic link between our genitals and our womb and our voice, I mean, like for instance, typically women, like when they're on their feminine cycle, their menstrual cycle, and like feeling a lot of like maybe cramping or energy moving, it helps really to like moan and just to kind of like release some of the energy, and just like moan and let it out. When women are, experiencing sexual stimulation, typically we want to open our voice and let energy move, like certainly in childbirth. There's a lot happening in the genitals during childbirth, and it's natural for a woman to want to make loud sounds, right? There is an energetic connection to the voice, and so I think that, for men, I think it's important to understand that if you happen to be coupled with a woman who doesn't really articulate and express and guide very much, there's a pretty high probability that she's never actually been just like given an experience where she just gets to be taken on a journey for her own body and her own pleasure, to learn her own pleasure map of her body. And so it's like, what does this look like? Well, I think it's about one person giving and one person receiving. And I think that offering the person receiving a chance to fully get them all comfortable and relaxed, and for the giver to just take them on a journey, meaning not going straight for the obvious and just only focusing on that one spot until a destination is reached. That specifically needs to get reprogrammed in the way that all of us approach this part of ourselves, sexuality and intimacy with another. Part of the benefit, like I was saying in the previous video, part of the benefit of planning ahead is that you can plan for like a good amount of time, plan minimum, I think 2 hours for sharing this kind of experience with your partner, but I'd say like a good 3 hours, or because it's nice to have a lot of different segments to it. And again, like what I was saying in my last video, I mean, it's not only the planning ahead and preparing yourself and preparing the space, those are all kind of like logistical things to help us transition from that high functioning, multitasking daily mode into, just real presence and connection with another person, and especially to engage in a really beautiful, sensual, pleasurable experience. And then it's like you get in that moment together, and then there's a whole other bridge that is needed, a bridge of connection, and that's why in the previous video I was guiding through, layers of energetic connection, physical connection, sensual connection, and sexual connection. And I likened it as a flower, and this like intimacy flower where there's these external petals, and so you've got like the energetic on the outside, like a rose, right, with all the different layers. So you've got like the energetic and the physical and the sensual and the sexual being at the very center of the flower, and how important, especially for women in long-term partnerships that are domestic partnerships and certainly with children, it's really important that these outer layers of the flower, these outer petals, get stimulated and enjoyed, because when the energy is just constantly going to the center, she's going to feel a little neglected, and she's going to feel bored. She's going to feel not taken care of. She's and she's just going to shut down over time. You know, these outer layers for women especially are really, really important. I think men too, definitely. But I don't think men biologically are wired to need it as much as women do. Because all these outer layers, it's about connection. That's what builds intimacy. And so in our culture, where most people's education comes from porn, porn is not educational, it's entertainment. And, it typically focuses on the man's pleasure, and it doesn't really educate on, it's like in porn, you've got these women that are like, they're just like ready to go, and they're so into it, and it's just yes, yes, yes. And in real life, it takes women some steps to get there, and it's important to remember too, in porn, not only is it entertainment, those people are getting paid, those women are getting paid, to make it look really good. So, it can happen in life too. There's just steps that need to be in place to help support a woman to get there and open. And first of all, it really does start with a woman taking great care of herself. Women, we need to take really, really great care of ourselves. We need to prioritize self-care, and it needs to be mind, body, spirit. We have in the West, we have a very limited idea of what self-care looks like. People think like, oh, just eat right and exercise. Luckily, more and more meditation is popularized, and but it really does need to be a daily thing, and mind, body, spirit triad of self-care. So it's like, it's our job first to make ourselves happy, and one of the best ways to make ourselves happy is to make ourselves healthy. It's really, really, really hard to be happy when we're unhealthy, when we're drained, when we're exhausted. It's very hard to be connected to good feelings, gratitude, a sense of play, a sense of joy when we're tired. And we need to prioritize our self-care, and that needs to be every single day, and certainly during the feminine monthly cycle. Absolutely. I'm going to be doing a whole series and online courses specifically on the monthly cycle at some point soon, because it's so important that we prioritize that self-care during that time of the month. But in terms of with our partner, it's important that we understand that, first of all, most men don't have education on how to make a woman happy, and it's like the biggest question that like most men have, like, how do I make women happy? And that in fact they're pretty desperate to understand and know what exactly it is, because so many men just like so deeply and so dearly and just so sweetly want to show up and give that to their woman. They want to make their woman happy. And so it's important as women that we understand that if we're with a man in partnership, chances are, just as a woman most women have never been given an experience of just being able to be taken on a journey of exploration in their body to see what they like and how they like it, and to learn and exercise that communicative skill set of guiding the other person into what they need and want. Most men haven't had any kind of education with that for women either, and certainly not for their own bodies, So part of why I'm bringing this whole series, this video series through, is to help just simply inspire couples to engage with this part of their relationship in a way that is more exploratory, that is more yeah, kind of exploratory, experimental, and sweet and connective. And so, for each person in the partnership to come to this part of their relationship and offer themselves as a humble student to the other person, for the other person to teach them all about their body and what do they like and how do they like it and what does that look like. And as far as what that looks like, I really want to encourage the topic of, it's really helpful if you could actually see what it looks like when your partner pleasures themselves, like in front of you. Because if you can see exactly what they do, then it's really helpful for you to learn and then to be able to repeat that for them. And it's also really helpful for, I think one way to grow this part of ourselves in our relationships is to broaden our scope of what can be sexually shared and enjoyed with our partner. It's like, I feel like oftentimes people are just so busy just trying to live the best quality life they can that the sex part of their relationship tends to be something they kind of like squeeze into like these small moments, where there's not a whole lot of exploration and process. It's just kind of like, let's get this need met of connection and then like kind of, move on with the rest of the tasks of the day, And so what I want to say is that, so often when I'm working with people for like health guidance and lifestyle changes and, and changes in general, making any positive changes, it's like always, there's a very immediate pushback from people saying, I don't have time, I don't have energy, I don't have money. And it's like, I just want to say to be very, very careful of the narratives that, that you tell yourself around why you're not able to have a higher quality life experience in any area of your life, because you're lacking resources. Obviously, we are all working with a limited set of resources every day, yet it's also true that most people, I'll just say, tend to choose how to use resources in a way that actually doesn't support their like most optimal fulfillment in that area of life. For instance, one easy one that people go to a lot is I don't have time. I mean, it's so common. And I'll say that in my experience of working with people, when we really break down what's going on in their lives, what are their daily habits, they watch TV 3 to 5 hours a night. It's very common. And that's a lot of time. By the way, 3 to 5 hours a night for decades on end, that's a lot of time that could be used for healthy choices that actually support a higher quality, more fulfilling, more optimal aspect of life. So I'm just saying that as an example of be very aware and very careful with the stories that we tell ourselves of why we can't have a greater quality experience in life in some way. Because the thing is, a lot of people that are craving more intimacy in the sexual part of their connection, it's like, if you're wanting a higher quality of intimacy in your connection, but then you're telling yourself, oh, but I don't have the time and I don't have the energy for all that. It's like, well, just understand where things don't line up. You either are willing to create time and have energy, prioritize energy to build this part of your life, or you're not going to, or you don't have the time, but you can't tell yourself, I don't have the time and energy, and I also want a greater fulfillment in this part of my life. It doesn't go together. You have to actually prioritize and make adjustments to channel energy into a direction that you want to grow in your life, right? So like in the experience that I was describing in the last video, where I was going more into, okay, so now, you know, you've planned ahead, you've created the space, you've prepared yourself, now you're there with each other and you're dropping in, you're creating a bridge of connection, maybe you're doing some breathing together, a meditation, some eye gazing. Maybe each one of you is giving some very, very light touch, while the other one just has eyes closed and is sitting and breathing in their meditation. And the other one is just, you know, has their eyes open and is just like giving some nice touches all over the body. Maybe there's like really sweet words of love and praise and admiration. You know, maybe there's some sweet words of intention of, this is what I hope to fulfill for you in this experience. This is what I hope to enjoy with you in this experience. And I want to be able to honor you in this way. I want to be a student of your pleasure and of your body. And I want to do everything I can to fulfill your needs in these ways. And, you know, just like, you know, there's ways that the bridge of connection could happen, and then going into the experience of giving and receiving, and say the woman is lying down, right, and saying her partner is the giver, and maybe she's lying down and she's comfortable in the bed or on the massage table, and you know, maybe like her body, she's just lied back, and she's, you know, maybe like her body is exposed. And, you know, for the partner to begin the experience by just very light touching, maybe with feathers or silks, maybe with some flowers, you know, just some very light, like kind of even just like subtle energetic or just really sensual touching, and really kind of highlighting all the areas of the body that are just seemingly not exciting or important, but that actually, like when you have it done to you, you realize how sensitive these parts are, you know, and how pleasurable it is. And even to have your partner, for the giver, to just trace all the lines, you know, and to follow all the curves, and to just take their time with that exploration. And you know, I would say just as a basic, you know, it's, again, really, really helpful, supportive, valuable, necessary, that if you're the giver, and if you find yourself in a moment where you don't know what to do, you're not sure, just simply come back into the part of yourself that is willing to be vulnerable, that is innocent, and just desires to please and pleasure your partner and make them feel special and make them feel really good in their bodies. And the part of yourself that just desires to know more, and you know, bring that part of yourself and just simply ask. And if people don't know, and you know, sometimes you're gonna ask and you know, your partner might not know, and exactly, and so you engage in a little exploratory moment together. Okay, well, what is it like when I touch like this, you know? And by the way, actually, I find using knuckles to be really helpful as like an indicator of how to guide men to touch a woman's clitoris in ways that feel pleasurable, you know, because the clitoris is so sensitive. It's said to have 8,000 nerve endings, whereas like the head of a man's penis has 4,000. And the size difference between a clitoris and the head of a man's penis is quite different. And so the clitoris is very, very sensitive, and men don't have a part of their bodies with that level of sensitivity. So, you know, it's helpful to just like, as a woman, like for instance, like one kind of resource you could use is like to have your man just like make a fist and expose his knuckles. And if you could just take your finger on one of his knuckles and show him how you like your clitoris to be stimulated. And in the times where I've done this in my own life, and the times where I've guided couples on how to do this with each other, the men are always shocked by how light the touch is, actually. And it's really helpful for them to have that to gauge of, you know, for their when they feel how light that is, they're like, oh my gosh, all the time they're like, wow, that's so light. And it really is for a lot of women, especially like when they're just kind of getting warmed up. But again, this is like the clitoris and like the vagina, like the opening, like these are areas that are good to be stimulated. It's kind of like, treat it like dessert, you know, kind of like have your full meal first, have appetizers and the full meal first, and maybe kind of just like lightly grazing and stimulating the breasts and the genitals, but like otherwise just like really building the energy, you know, and getting a woman to just feel so good in her body. And so much of it is like for women, you know, the more it's beyond pleasure, actually, because for a woman, this quality of attention is what makes her feel emotionally safe and emotionally secure, and to feel like a sense of stability with her partner. And it's really important for women, for us to be able to open in our lower centers. It's really important that we feel safe, secure, and stable with our partner. And when our partner gives us these kinds of experiences, it feeds those qualities of safety and stability and security in our own body and with this other person, and it builds trust and intimacy. And again, engaging in dialogues around, like, you know, as a giver, like, oh, I'm not really sure exactly what to do with this part of your body, you know, can you show me, you know, I'd love to see exactly how you touch yourself, you know, or, you know, can you guide me, you know, and what does it feel like when I do this right here? And, you know, because it's like, for instance, when it comes to the genitals, it's like there's obvious areas of sensitivity, but then there's a lot of areas of sensitivity that aren't obvious. And it's really great if you could, if you come to a moment where you're like, I want to learn more, it's so important to ask your partner, you know, like, what are the ways to touch you that I just wouldn't fathom being able to understand on my own without you showing me? Like, what are the ways that I can touch you that are like what you like and how you touch yourself? Highly, highly, highly recommend too, like, along with taking turns, along with adding in experiences like this where there's a giver and a receiver, to add in experiences where you actually pleasure yourselves in front of each other. It's really hot. And you know, it's just another way to enjoy sexual energy together. That's not only, I feel like, one reason why this area of relationships can get a little stale for people is because it just gets like kind of shrunk down to just like oral pleasure or penetration, penis vagina penetration, and it just kind of like forgets about like digital stimulation and the fact that you can, you know, do that for each other and do that on yourselves with each other. And it's a really great, it's just, variety's nice, right? It's like, we don't always want the same meal, right? Even if we love that meal, but it's like when it starts to become routine and predictable, where we know like how it's going to go from this bite to that bite, and it's just, even if we always love that meal, at some point we're like, gosh, I actually just feel like eating something else. So it's really important to remember that the hands are amazing. Like what hands are capable to do. And I'm not just talking sexually, like just like in general, like the human hand. I once had a client of mine many, many years ago. He's a civil engineer, and he said that the hands are like nature's most amazing technology ever because of what they're capable to do. And when it comes into sexually, you know, the hands are able to offer pleasure and stimulation in ways that are really hard to do with your mouth or really hard to do with genitals. And it's a way that people can give to each other sexually and pleasurably, but that has a really high value that takes less energy for people to do. So, you know, sometimes we don't feel as energetic to do that much sexually, but you know, it still is really beautiful and sweet and nourishing to be able to sit with your partner and then take on a role of giver and receiver and have the giver just use their hands to pleasure their partner with. And it's very satisfying and very deeply intimate. And, you know, on that note too, around the topic of like really bringing in more shared masturbation with your partner, you know, especially in times like if you're feeling really low energy and your partner really wants some attention, you know, that's a really easy way to give your partner what they need in that moment, and also conserve your own energy. And another thing is even encouraging your partner to pleasure themselves while you just, you know, lay with them, and maybe you're touching them or like making sounds in their ear, like kissing them, you know, these are just ways where sexual intimacy can still be enjoyed without it always having to be about like, you know, the more kind of energetic, energetically demanding activities. And so, yeah, I mean, I feel like I just dream of a world where like we just have a whole different culture around sexual education with ourselves, first of all, how to learn our own like pleasure terrain of our bodies, and then how to just explore that with another person in a way that feels comfortable and confident and secure. I mean, it needs to feel secure because it is vulnerable, right? And ideally, you're doing these kinds of things with someone that you trust, someone that's proven that they're worthy of your trust. And so that person is ideally someone who's invested in the process with you and also wants to learn and grow with you. And when I say bringing in a sense of authenticity and vulnerability and innocence, I mean being okay with it not being perfect, being okay with it even like something like kind of silly happening, and just being able and willing to just laugh at yourself, you know, like if something's funny, just let it be funny, you know, like if, like for instance, this thing's coming to mind right now where years ago I was with this guy I was dating, and I decided I was going to do a sexy dance for him. And there was, I was selling my mattress that was lying in his living room floor at the time and taking up like all his floor, and I was just going to dance on the mattress. And anyways, I got in my little outfit and put the music on and started dancing. And because I'm dancing on this mattress, and at one point I like tripped and I fell, and we both laughed. We both had this great laugh, and it's like, it just like made it funny and fun. We ended up, you know, both of us like dancing on the mattress together and falling at times, and kind of turned into like some wrestling, and then it turned into some lovemaking, and it was just fun, you know, fun and silly, and, you know, the ability to just laugh and be vulnerable and kind of not take it too seriously, you know? Like we don't always have to show up in this way that's like, I'm the most confident lover ever, and there's this like, I do everything perfectly and I already know everything there is to know. It's like, no, you don't. Just admit it. No, you don't. And in fact, the journey of discovery is fun. And make it fun, make it playful, you know, and make it special, you know. Think about your partner. What would they like? Think about you. Like, what are the areas that you want to grow? Like, you know, are there places in you that you want to grow that feel vulnerable, maybe a little intimidating, you know, because it's so powerful. And it's like, what happens when you step into that power? You know, and again, ideally you're doing this stuff with someone that you trust, and someone that loves you and just wants the very best for you, and wants to support you in your process of growing and developing these parts of yourselves, because they certainly want to enjoy it with you. And so, yeah, just as women and men, it's the same both ways. I think, I've worked with men and women in just how to gain more confidence in this part of themselves. And oftentimes there's quite a lot of anxiety that comes from not already knowing how to do things right. But again, I mean, to get the most out of your connection, it's really important to engage in these kinds of dialogues and experiments, explorations. I mean, it's like the best homework ever. Why not? And make the time for it. And if it's kind of like, it's funny because, again, I've been doing coaching and health consulting with people for many, many years, like 20 years. And there's this interesting disconnect where people want higher quality life experience, but they don't want to make any effort towards it. They don't want to put any time towards it. They don't want to make any changes, no adjustments, but they just want the better thing. And it's like, I'm sorry to tell you, it just does not work that way. So if you're not willing to make adjustments, if that's true, if you're not willing to make any logistical adjustments in order to prioritize a more optimal outcome in your life, then you've painted yourself into a corner where the only adjustment that you're able to make is your own expectations of how much better you think it should be. I mean, that's just how it goes. You can't have it all. You can't have like the most optimal experience of any part of life and not put any effort into it, right? It just doesn't work like that. And I understand that for couples, for domestic couples, and especially couples with children, it requires a lot of effort to prioritize time and energy for this part of the connection. And at the same time, if that part of the connection is not prioritized, then it puts the connection, it compromises the connection, right? So yeah, and again, it's part of why it's really good to go back and watch or listen to the first 2 videos I did in this series, because it's really helpful to understand like what are all the threads that feed into this way that we share connection with our partner. It's really important to understand that, especially for women. So if you're a woman, or if you're someone who loves a woman, it's really important to watch these videos and just to get more understanding of generally how it goes for women in this part of themselves. Women, we tend to need a lot in order to feel available to connect sexually. And I'm not saying every woman's like that, but a lot are. And I'll say too, you know what? Let me do a time check really quick. I'm going to see. Gosh, these hour-long videos go by so fast. I'll just finish my thought. Okay. Some basic massage technique to keep in mind and to make you feel more confident when you're massaging your partner. By the way, it's a great idea to go to like some kind of couples massage class or something. Like if you really don't know, if you're really not confident and you want to learn some skills. But one thing is like, just know that I'm just going to give you kind of 2 basic tools, and I'm going to have to wrap it up here. Know that when it comes to touch and massage, you can repeat the same motion 3 to 8 times. You don't have to feel like you got to keep it moving and keep it different the whole time. Actually, it's helpful to repeat motions, because part of what the repetition does is it allows the mind of the receiver to actually sink in and connect to what's happening with their body. So repetition is really important, and also completing lines of movement. Make sure that if you start at one part, that you run the entire line all the way to the other joint, because that actually is it's more enjoyable. The thing is, if a person's touch is like all erratic over the body, and if lines aren't being completed, it doesn't help the receiver to anchor in. I should probably end up just doing a whole kind of video and guidance series on just basic massage and touch. I foresee myself going into doing like courses and workshops with couples and stuff like that eventually. But anyhow, in these videos, I'm at least just trying to give you some insights and inspirations and some guidance into how to create this part of life to be even more pleasurable, and again, like really focusing on like the depth of intimacy with your special person. So thank you so much for your time in being here with me in this way. I appreciate it so much. And all of my offerings are in my link on my Instagram bio, and they're also on my website, which is goddessmodern.com. I just launched a new offering I'm calling Guidance Line, and it's an online advisory service for the soul. You can book in 20-minute increments, and we hop on a call and we do a deep dive look into what's going on for you, and we at least get you connected to how you positive feelings as soon as possible, and potentially get you set up with a game plan to get you from point A to point B. Looks like I need to thank you for saying that. Looks like I need to wrap this up, and thank you again, and I'll be back with more on these topics soon, and I just wish you well. Thank you.